Thank you, A-level students, for tuning in for another session of revision. We are still on French Revolution, 1774 to 18012. Today, I want us to look at the reign of Napoleon Bonaparte. I want us to analyze, was Napoleon Bonaparte the savior or the child of revolution? Or Napoleon Bonaparte was driven by his own personal ambitions to get power in France in 1800. We have two sides of Napoleon, and I will be able perhaps to try and analyze both sides of Napoleon Bonaparte. Starting from the time he got power, Napoleon Bonaparte, many historians will argue that he was full of ambition. In 1800, when he takes power, he forms the consulate. But then he manages to manipulate the rest of the consuls so that he becomes the supreme consul that is able to make the key decision. And there are three people. So look at that, and you know that Napoleon perhaps had a desire for personal power, not really to enrich the French Revolution. So it's important to remember that in the consul, he was more equal than the others. He called himself the first consul. Many historians opine that Napoleon packed the Council of State and Senate with his supporters. The assembly that was created, the national parliament that was created, and the hidden agenda behind these was that he had loyal people who could support his decisions. Whenever any key decision was to be made, Napoleon loyalists would ensure that everything passed. Napoleon, being astute as a politician, perhaps was able to do that. So we are getting him being very ambitious, having an overriding power to take power. Also, some historians will argue that he declared himself an emperor in 1804. So returning France back to those ancient days, the titles of king, the titles of emperors. So Napoleon takes back the fruits of the revolution back to the ancient regime at that particular time. And some historians says to win the support of the rich people to vote for him, he ensured that voting then was pegged on taxation. So we are seeing Napoleon very ambitious, trying perhaps to use his popularity to gain power in France at that particular time and utilize it to maintain power and consolidate power in the initial stages. So to those historians who say he was ambitious and he did it for selfish gains, those are some of the points that they will argue and opine that Napoleon was full of ambition and selfish ambition. But looking at his reforms, many historians will argue that he was indeed a son of a revolution, the savior of a revolution in France. And we want to look at one of his lasting legacy that had an imprint in Europe at that particular time. Code Napoleon. We want to start with Code Napoleon. Code Napoleon was very, very important because it created a uniform systems of law in France at that particular time, replacing many civil laws that existed in different parts of France at that particular time. So that uniformity is very important. It ensures that there's a rule of law. And legal students will tell you that the rule of law ensures that everybody is treated equal in that particular country. So credit goes to Napoleon for creating the Code Napoleon. Every citizen now has the same rights in France at that particular time, has the same liberties in France at that particular time. This shows the gain of a revolution it's important to remember that the law abolished the class system that had existed during the ancient time in France at this particular time. So ensuring that we don't have the issue of classes. Credit to Code Napoleon. It protected private property. Anybody would get private property. And if we go back to the French Revolution and we see the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen, that was one of the provisions in the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizens. Therefore, he is a son of the revolution. He is the savior of revolutions. Historians would say that the Code Napoleon also granted religious toleration, that we have different sects of religion in France at that particular time, something that perhaps the revolutionaries dreamed of and fought for. So Napoleon is a son of the revolution at that particular time. It also provided stability, and it ensured that there was legal clarity in France at that particular time. So the son of a revolution, the savior of a revolution, Napoleon Bonaparte. But critics will still point out that Code Napoleon had different flaws. For example, it favored the male over the female. It ensured that the authority of the husband and the father was maintained. So it didn't bring gender parity at that particular time. Women lost their individual rights. They were treated as minors subject to men in this particular regard. So critics of Napoleon Bonaparte will say that despite bringing Code Napoleon, there was the discrimination of gender, that women were not able to get their legal rights at this particular time. So women had perhaps to be subject to their husband. But credit number one for those who are talking about the reforms of Napoleon Bonaparte, that will be one of the lasting gains of the revolution at this particular time. So we are talking about the Napoleonic era at this particular time. Napoleonic era at this particular time. And we also want to talk about something that Napoleon brought about that credit goes to the revolution. You're talking about the Concordat with the Catholic Church at that particular time. He made sure there was reconciliation between the state and religion. And as many people understand, many people belong to the church. So he organized the Catholic Church to become the official church at that particular time, maintaining some of the aspects of the revolution. The clergy was still paid by the state, and he ensured that Pope Pius the Eighth, perhaps at that particular time, was able to reconcile with the church at that particular time. So something that many historians will argue traces its roots to the French Revolution, and Napoleon Bonaparte is a son of the revolution. Looking at all his economic changes in France at that particular time, you will also say that the gains of the revolution were popularized in France at that particular time. One of the lasting legacies of Napoleon Bonaparte was the creation of the Bank of France, created in 1800, and it regulated the economy. The economy kept running at that particular time, and there was a new currency that was introduced that ensured that hyperinflation, which we witnessed during the Reign of Terror, was curbed in France at this particular time, and ensured the bank ensures there was efficient collection of taxes in France at that particular time. And one also of his reforms was in education. The education system was reformed. We had state-controlled schools at that particular time, and these schools trained future leaders. Admission was based on merit at that particular time, and the curriculum was strictly controlled at that particular time. You also will be talking about the Legion of Honor, Napoleon creating awards to citizens to recognize them for their outstanding performances in the country at that particular time, inspiring productivity. So the Legion of Honor, some historian will credit it, that it promoted the ideals of the French Revolution at that particular time. And lastly, another enduring legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte was promotion based on merit. Unlike during the French, before the French Revolution, during the ancient regime, it depended on the class on which you belong. So the two sides of Napoleon Bonaparte, was he a son of the revolution, or was he getting power to enhance his own image? And perhaps, as many people say, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Was Napoleon genuine when he organized the coup of Bremia, or was he perhaps having a hidden agenda to grab power and promote his own selfish ideals? Both sides of the story will confirm that Napoleon balanced his interest with nationalism at that particular time. So when you are looking at Napoleon, and especially when you're revising, you should be able to get the two sides of Napoleon Bonaparte, that he was a son of revolution and he was not a son of a revolution. This is a guiding video that will guide you on how to revise on Napoleon Bonaparte. I still wish you the best as we try to get more videos. As the exam comes near, we will be able to shed more light and give you more guidance on the revision tips. This is the end of the lesson. We see you next time for the next video.